Running a Fever, Episode 83, Independence.
It is 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I'm at the old stomping grounds and I'm heading out in the direction that I went on my first walk out here when I started this journey last year. No cars in the parking lot, but I've already seen 5 people already, and I'm not even to the quarter-mile point. 75 degrees, which is really not bad for the middle of the summer. Good morning. In a recent episode, we talked about the dangers of being out in the heat, and one of the ways you can avoid that is to come out early in the morning when it's cooler. And that's what I'm doing. So it's really more just for scheduling convenience today. I have family in town because it's in the United States Independence Day weekend. Although this year Independence Day came rather inconveniently right in the middle of the week on Wednesday. So last week, I suppose, could have also been Independence Day weekend. Independence Day celebrates the day on which a group of representatives from all of the colonies. There were 13 colonies that were in attendance. July 4th, 1776, I want to say it was Philadelphia, signed a document called the Declaration of Independence, which was declaring independence from England, Britain, United Kingdom, as they're sometimes called today. Independence from the kingdom of King George. There are several things that caused this and sort of prompted it. One of the problems was taxes, and that was probably one of the big ones. We were getting taxed, and of course, the idea that if you're taxed, then you should have some say in government. We did not. No one from what was then colonial America had any say in government. Although if you were an appointed governor of one of these colonies, probably had a little more input. What are you going to do? It was a kingdom. I mean, there's a king. So you pretty much got a dictatorial rule there. This was not the beginning of the United States as we know it today. It was the beginning of independence of a group of colonies from England and the king. Political independence. Another thing they really didn't like was quartering of soldiers. And that meant that when a unit of soldiers were in your town, they could commandeer your house and say, okay, a bunch of guys are going to stay here tonight. Nothing you can do about it.
Morning.
Morning. And it's pretty much, you got a gun, you can do whatever you want, but especially if you're not in out in a colony, it's really a foreign country, right? But it was the law, so there was no way to file a grievance against something like that. So it's interesting to note that these things are things that a number of people, they knew it was going to be war. They suspected it would probably be war. I think it's very interesting to note the reasons for going into war in which lives would possibly be lost. People were willing to give their lives to be free of taxes and things like being forced to have soldiers in their house. Some of the things that they were not complaining about would be interesting to note if I could think of any. But I guess my point is there's a lot of things that the government does now. Our government, United States government, my government, may not be yours if you're from Sweden or Japan or Australia. But there are a lot of things that this government does that might have prompted some of these people from that period to go to war. In my part of the country, around this time, you see a lot more American flags. You hear patriotic songs in church. And I am Southern by culture, and that affects some of this. Ironically, there are a lot of patriotic people in the South, I think, more so than perhaps other areas of the country, particularly, well, I won't say that, but, and the South is like the United States, actually, in that it rebelled from a government, and the only difference is that the South lost that war. In history, it is now known as a civil war, mainly for that reason, I think. It's interesting. It's not a civil war if the rebels win. Then it's just a war of independence. The fact that the southern states, which called themselves the Confederate States of America, had to fight a war in order to win their independence, should they have won it, is ironic considering the principles founding this country. So I need to go back a little bit. The reason I'm trying to, these are things that I have discovered as an adult that I didn't learn in my American history classes when I was in school. Some of them may have been taught to me, but I didn't really learn them, if you know what I mean. So after the war, there was a Confederacy. And the war ended about, when was the Treaty of Paris? I should know this, right? Everyone who went to school in the United States should know this. When was the Treaty of Paris? I'm going to say 1778. Good morning. Picking up the pace here, almost to the marina. My goal for today, by the way, is to go 6 miles. And last week I went to the Mud Creek Trail and noticed that there were connectors to Lake Fayetteville. So I was going to try to find one of those and go down for half a mile or less, if I can figure that out. It's kind of difficult when you go on these different trails. The numbering doesn't always match up. Come back and then finish the circuit of Lake Fayetteville. kind of humid this morning because we've been having some rain, and there was a storm yesterday. Kind of really uneasy sort of weather. And I saw a tree down across the trail, and I took a picture of that, which you may see in this blog episode. And I'm just taking my watch off of power saving mode, so it's just now starting to record stuff. So, oh, there we go. It's been recording. Just hasn't been displaying anything. Constitution of the United States of America ratified in 1789. 11 years after the end of the war. So what were we in those times? We were a confederacy. Yes. Before the United States was the United States of America, it was a confederacy. This was all drawn up not in a constitution, but in a document called the Articles of Confederation. This was the basis for secession of states. Individual states of the South decided to secede from the Union. It was known as the Union, the United States, basically. Secede from this, and they formed a confederation of states in order to jointly defend themselves in the same manner that the original 13 colonies defended themselves against the king. So, if any respect should have been paid to this principle, you would think the United States government would have paid it. But apparently, that wasn't the case. I attribute this to Lincoln, but that's just really, I'm not a historian, so there's a lot of things I don't know about that period. But I do know if a bunch of people in an area get together and they decide they don't want to be, well, it's another beautiful sunrise here, so we're going to see if we can get a photo. I don't know if it's all Lincoln, but he's the guy making the speeches. So, just my opinion, if a group of people get together and decide they want to not be a part of the government they used to be a part of and take their section of land and make their own way, they ought to be able to do that. That's called self-determination. We do not have the right of self-determination. Let's just say it's violated by the United States government, because Lincoln decided that no one in the United States has the right of self-determination anymore. So there you go. And you see this a lot in modern politics. It's called American exceptionalism. And it's basically the same thing as the divine right of kings of old. So keep that in mind. Now, a lot of people will cite, it's a great country, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's great because of the people here. And it's great because of a lot of things. But government is got a ways to go. Morning. Spillway's about 50-50 here today. It's not really overflowing rapidly or sitting there dry. It's just got a good flow, but nothing dramatic. So really this is kind of just a celebration of what might be known as American culture. And it's difficult sometimes for me to think of things that make up American culture. Southern culture, no problem. Grits, barbecue, NASCAR, football, mostly foods and sports, but and also just friendliness and that sort of thing. American culture, I don't know. Independent spirit, I suppose. The idea that anyone can have anything if they try hard enough and work hard enough. But independence is really kind of a thing of the past here. Not really something that's practiced in the United States anymore. So, get one chance and that's it. Howdy.
Good morning.
Howdy. Tons of fireworks are exploded during the Independence Day period, and by the way, it's mostly known as the 4th of July in the United States. People know what you say. They know what you're talking about when you say Independence Day, but it's usually referred to simply as the 4th of July. Feels like a fairly busy day, actually, to me, considering how early I started today. But it's still, oh, there's a few clouds, but it's not really overcast. It's just, I'm now just past the Veterans Park and some trees, so the sun is way over there and still not up in the sky. So we've talked about adverse situations and inconvenient situations and how to keep yourself on track, and this is one week that's kind of that way. I've had family in town for the holiday, went to a baseball game, saw some fireworks, did some other stuff we usually do, and been eating out more than usual and preparing food for other people other than just myself, so I'm a little out of my routine. But I weighed in on Thursday at work, and I was within my range of the weight that I'm targeting. Howdy. Getting out to exercise, not that much of a problem, really. I mean, I think a lot of times that it doesn't, it looks like you're neglecting your guests if you want to do something that's in your normal routine. But really, I don't think it is, especially with a stay of more than a day or two. I don't think that's really, and they told me, told me as much. Morning. So it's Saturday morning. They want to go to breakfast this morning, I think. I don't know. I'll be back, I guess, about 8 o'clock, something like that, if things go as they usually do. Got a pretty good pace going, though. But I decided to go out and get my exercise today. And it's feeling pretty good. So I hope you enjoyed my radical political views concerning the origins of our countries and governments. Or at least tolerated it today. Thank you for listening, and keep the fever. I'll see you next time on Running a Fever.
This is the Padua Podcast Network. PaduaMedia.com.